So, a friend recently sent me some TikTok videos talking about the Pantone color of the year, which is white. And I was reading through the comments of this video. The video showed a black woman going up on stage and basically defending Pantone's choice of the color and explaining a little bit about why they chose this color. And the comments, there was one commenter that was saying, "Oh, I can't believe they trotted out this black person, this black woman, to basically run cover for this white supremacist organization, Pantone, and their choice of white." And people are in the comments going, "That's the CEO of Pantone. You know, she's not just some random spokesperson that they chose. That's the CEO." And this didn't really deter the original commenter. They just said, yeah, like, so what, that she's still supporting white supremacy. And it got me thinking, well, one, what is so supremacist about the color white itself and the color white being chosen out of, how many years have they been doing this? There's been a million different colors, and they chose this year was white. What is so supremacist about white being a pretty color, or admitting that white is pretty? And then secondly, how can, regardless of whether or not this was actually the CEO, or just hypothetically, if the entire company was run by black people, if it was run by entirely first-generation immigrants from Papua New Guinea and Somalia, could they still be capable of producing something that supports white supremacy? And what is white supremacy? Well, this issue reminded me a lot of the issue with Sydney Sweeney's ad for American Eagle, where she basically said that she has good genes and that she's beautiful. And it was a play on words with genes. And people were accusing American Eagle of supporting white supremacy and Sydney Sweeney of supporting white supremacy. And the fact is that neither Sydney Sweeney nor American Eagle are white supremacists. But it's about saying, the simple act of saying that a white person is beautiful is white supremacist, simply because they are excluding black people. Because a black person that sees that ad cannot identify with Sydney Sweeney. They cannot hope to achieve the look of Sydney Sweeney, because they are fundamentally genetically different. And by choosing a white person as the representative of beauty for this ad, they are effectively ignoring a potential black model, or they are excluding a black model. The inclusion of whiteness in any context is the exclusion of blackness, which is the lens that all of these issues are being viewed in. That's why the inclusion of the color white, to say that the color white is beautiful, is to basically say that black isn't beautiful, is to basically say that white was chosen out of all the other colors, and that the other colors cannot be beautiful at the same time that white is beautiful. And I think that when people say that these companies are white supremacists, they're not actually thinking that they're staffed by brown shirts and Klansmen. Maybe there are some people in the comments that are that simple that they really do think that they're fighting legitimate racists who are dog whistling white supremacy through these little decisions like casting Sydney Sweeney in an ad or picking the color white as the color of the year. But I think all of this is functioning more on a conceptual level, like I was talking about, of this oppositional dialectic between black and white. Is if you have white, you can't have black. White excludes black necessarily. It has to exclude it. And that's the same reason why these same leftists will claim that institutions like marriage, concepts like wellness, beauty, meritocracy, all of these things are necessarily white supremacist because they exclude black people, because black people, for whatever reason, cannot be these things, or they aren't these things at the moment. And striving to be these things is actually supporting the institution of white supremacy itself. And this idea is so pervasive, I think that people end up falling into it on a instinctual level, where if a multi-ethnic friend group is hanging out and they're trying to figure out where to go to eat or something, and a black girl suggests one place and a white girl suggests another place, and if the friend group decides to side with the white girl, that friend group is supporting white supremacy. And it sounds ridiculous to put it out there, but that is the same way that that these ideas are being made, that these racist titles are being given out to these companies, because siding with a white person over a black person is necessarily white supremacist, even if you aren't thinking about white supremacy, even if everybody else in the friend group is multi-ethnic. If they side with whiteness, even just conceptually by admitting that white is a pretty color, it's automatically negating blackness, which goes in the face of Western standards, like Western beauty. We have this concept that Sydney Sweeney is beautiful because of her genetics and her face and her body and just the way that she looks. There's a hierarchy of not beautiful to beautiful. And when black people try to compare themselves to this standard, this Western standard, they find it difficult to relate to the conclusions. So they have this like juvenile reaction to go basically the opposite. Is if you want me to support this, then I'm going to support the opposite, the complete opposite. So they end up being against beauty. They end up being against wellness, because all of these institutions are activities that white people engage in, that white people enjoy, and that rewards white people when they do engage in them. These hierarchical institutions and the concept of hierarchy itself, wellness and beauty, that white people have created for themselves based off of evolutionary fitness and basically evolving to appreciate these things like high cheekbones, slender physique, high sexual dimorphism, symmetry, clear skin, athleticism, strength. you can put it into this racially competitive frame that recontextualizes it into this argument that if Western beauty loves all these things, then, and Western beauty is eugenics, and then eugenics is fascist, and fascism is Nazism, and Nazism is the new absolute moral negative after World War II in the 21st century. So you can very easily in this framework just make anything that white people do into the absolute moral negative and call people to oppose it. So the concept of hierarchy, the concept of one thing necessarily being better than another, or being able to make that kind of judgment, that kind of value judgment on anything is evil, because that's how fascism happened. And that's where the Marxists and the post-structuralists like Foucault and Derrida come in, where, and it intersects with this racial competitive frame. So now you have all of this deconstruction of whiteness happening, and anything that supports whiteness, even the color white itself, because it symbolizes purity and unity and serenity in a historicized context like modernity or our current political situation. Choosing that color in our current political situation is effectively choosing, if you're choosing to support purity and unity in our current political situation, that means you support Trump. And if you support Trump, obviously that means you're a fascist. And if you're a fascist, people should do violence against you. So it's all this contextualization that happens that basically reframes it to back to everything that is white supports Nazism due to this over contextualization. So white people are still thinking and striving for this very hierarchical concept of truth, and they fall into this line of thinking, they fall into this trap of following this logic that because something bad came out of whiteness or came out of a desire for these concepts or an appreciation of these concepts, that whiteness is evil. That because something bad came from whiteness, that whiteness is bad, and they're going with it. But I don't think they fully realize that the conclusion to this line of thinking is the end of white people. So, because if the color white in a contemporary context, in a contemporary political context, is enough to get you labeled as a white supremacist company, even if you have a black CEO, even if you have a company run completely by Papua New Guineans and Somali immigrants, it still supports the institution of whiteness because you picked a color that has a certain connotation with purity and unity and serenity in a time where that is basically support for Trump, and that's basically support for Nazis. So no matter how many black friends you have or how majority multi-ethnic your company is, it's not going to redeem you in this system. And eventually it's going to be if you paint your house white, or if you have a well-groomed German Shepherd or a Golden Retriever, or if you have pretty oak doors on your white house, those are going to become symbols of fascism and symbols of white supremacy. And it naturally follows that if the existence of even the color white is a symbol of white supremacy, then the existence of white people will be white supremacy.